Bihari. Is there a way to move that so that's on my house?
Yeah, I have it.
Gopi Jana Baba Girivade Nadi. Gopi Jana Baba Girivade Nadi. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vandachari. Yamuna Tira Vandachari. Yamuna Tira Vandachari. Yamuna Tira Transcendental Appearance Day, and I'm going to do the Bhagavatam class, but I'm also going to talk about Bhakti Vinod. And before I start, I want to say this prayer to Bhakti Vinod. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya. If you can repeat. Namo Bhakti Vinodaya.
Namo Bhakti Vinodaya.
Satchit Ananda Namine.
Satchit Ananda Namane.
Gora Shakti Swarupaya.
Gora Shakti Swarupaya.
Rupa Nuga Variety.
Rupa Nuga Variety.
And the translation is, I offer my respectful obeisances under Satchit Ananda, Satchit Ananda Bhakti Vinod, who is transcendental energy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's a strict follower of the Goswamis and he's a strict follower of the Goswamis, headed by Srila Rupa Goswami. And this is from this book called The Seventh Goswami, and that nomenclature, that name, or the referring to him as the Seventh Goswami, was actually done. I heard this in a class this morning, I think it was, or yesterday. That a newspaper article. A gentleman had read some of Bhaktivinoda's things, and he said, I never, by time I'm too young to have had the association of the six Goswamis, but I know of their writings. So I was separated by time from the six Goswamis, but I find myself very fortunate to be alive at the time of the seventh Goswami, and that's how the name, and it stuck. The people agreed with that. Is there a way to tighten this? Or So that's how this title, Seventh Goswami, came about. And I just want to read one quick thing here, and then I'm going to go to the Bhagavatam and sort of set the tone. So this is something from one of Prabhupada's books. I'm trying to see where it is. Where's quoted? Yeah, it's from Chaitanya Majalila, I believe. So anyway, it says, practically this Chaitanya movement was, of course, Lord Chaitanya inaugurated this movement 500 years ago. And after that, so many pseudo-Chaitanyites deprecated the whole thing. But the Chaitanya movement, in its pure form, as it is, was restarted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We should take it that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the origin of the Krishna consciousness movement in its pure form. So Prabhupada is giving credit to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Goswami as being the actual father of this movement, the head of this movement. There was a gap of about 100 years from the last, I think it was Baldev Vichagusana, was like the last sort of really stalwart preacher, and about 100 years between him and Bhaktivinoda. There was a few rare, really pure Vaishnavas spread throughout, in Vrindavan mainly, some in Jagannath Puri. But mainly the Gaudiya Vaishnavism became not considered very highly of, sort of decadent hedonist sex cult in some places, in other places strange interpretations of Lord Chaitanya's movement, misusing it. And so it appears just like, Krishna said to Arjuna that, I spoke this same knowledge to the sun god, Vivaswan, many millions of years ago. You were there, Arjuna. But over the course of time, it appears to be lost. And also, this then happened with Chaitanya's movement. So, and I read somewhere recently where Prabhupada was saying how Kala, or time, has this effect on everything in this material world. Everything depreciates, and as soon as you drive a car off the lot, it depreciates by a couple of $1,000s from what you pay for it. And every time you build a new building, it's already beginning to deteriorate. That's the nature of this material world. So it's not that this movement is a material movement, but the nature of time has this effect. And Krishna's acknowledging that to Arjuna, that it became covered over. And Maya and specifically in this age, Kali, these personifications, they're always looking for the chance to pollute the devotees. One devotee was saying something that right outside the doors or the gates of the temple, the Kali and Maya are waiting for you, just waiting to give you insert some misconception or some impurity. So we always have to be on guard and vigilant. And there also, we could say that when Bhakti Siddhanta, when Bhakti Charu Swami was here in 2016, I was just recently listening to the lecture that he gave on the stage back there that we had set up. And he was saying how Bhakti Siddhanta's Gaudiya Math was extremely powerful movement, very successful, 64 temples or maths, all over India. And he said this was a very, very well-respected and a great feat that Bhakti Siddhanta accomplished. And following in the footsteps of his father, fulfilling the wishes of his father, but they didn't get to the point of they attempted to go to the West, but it never really happened. So, not to the extent that Prabhupada did. So, at that time, after Bhakti Siddhanta left, a very vibrant and dynamic movement distributing thousands of books monthly all over India, and leading people were joining the Gaudiya Math, or at least having great, respect for it and support financially and otherwise. After his departure, there began the infighting, and they actually they became in some ways, more distracted by properties, who controlled and owned which property, and there was more of that than what we have faced in some ways. And so Prabhupada was still an active member of the Gaudiya Math, and he never gave up on the Gaudiya Math. Even when he was in the West, he wanted to fulfill that order and was trying to encourage his godbrothers to assist in this mission that they all knew was very important to Bhaktisiddhanta. And at the end, finally Prabhupada just decided that he had to. He had no choice, because there was no money coming from them, no support, they weren't sent. There was one brahmachari who wanted to come, and he was stopped by his spiritual master. And so nobody was giving any kind of support in any way. Well, they would say nice words, go for it kind of thing, but they weren't going to get invested in it. So Prabhupada had to form his own society. It wasn't like he set out to set his own institution. That he was forced to do so. And it seemed as if the Gaudiya Math was, for all intents and purposes, just limping along and dying a very slow, tragic death. And Prabhupada revived it in the rebirth of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we should never feel disheartened. At different times, there'll be throughout the next 9,500 years, there'll be different stages. And this is a natural thing in this material world. And so the precedent is already there. But the process is still there. And the process is still pure. As we'll read today in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And by doing a class on Srimad Bhagavatam is the best way to glorify Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he was very attached to studying the Bhagavatam and setting up little areas and groups for reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and Chaitanya Charitamrita, the chanting of the holy names. He was very active in all these things. And maybe as we go along, I'll try to weave it into the class. So I just wanted to make that point, that this is a very important day, because it's the appearance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who restarted Lord Chaitanya's movement. He's the father of the Krishna conscious movement as we know it. And we're all deeply indebted, because from him came Bhaktisiddhanta, and from Bhaktisiddhanta came His Divine Grace of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and from Prabhupada all of this is done. So we're all indebted to him. And also, though, we should take heart and look at history and see how things work in this material world. We shouldn't throw up our hands and, it was great when Prabhupada was here and now it's not the same. Well, that's par for the course. That's the way it is, but that doesn't mean that the process is still not the same process. That someone who's serious can still get the same benefit from that process. Krishna is still in his name. He's still in these pastimes. So we should never feel disheartened about, in our part of the world, things aren't as dynamic. Of course, we're concerned here in New Talavana because, we've had our meeting about, what do we call it again? The secession, yeah. So, and we were having another discussion at the CMT meeting this weekend. We were always talking about what will happen after the senior devotees are gone. So it's a very important thing, and we're racking our brains, but ultimately it comes down to the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We're not the doers. We have to the prayers of Saranagati are about, I am completely fallen, I am completely incompetent, impotent, I throw myself at your lotus feet and beg for your mercy. This is the mood of Saranagati, complete surrender. So this process is coming through grace, divine mercy. And we become empowered. And the arrangements will be made by Super Soul if we we are determined like the sparrow in the ocean. The ocean takes away the nest, and the sparrow wants it back, and the ocean just ignores it. But the mother is so determined that drop by drop takes out a drop, just constantly, consistently taking one drop out of the ocean. And then everyone thinks it's ridiculous, except for Garuda. And Garuda has the power to do something about it. So, miracles, we believe in miracles. Otherwise, how is it that we're all, how is it that I'm here? That's what I don't know. Anyway, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So it's text 15, right? Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yad Ikshanam Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yad Ikshanam Yad Vandanam Yat Travanam Yad Arhanam Yad Vandanam Yad Travanam Yad Arhanam I'll do it again. Yad Vandanam Yad Travanam Yad Arhanam Lokasha Sadjo Vidunoti Kamasam Lokasha Sadjo Vidunoti Kamasam Lokasha Sadjo Vidunoti Kamasam Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha Tasmai Subhadra Tasmai Namo Namaha Yad Kirtanam Yad Smaranam Yad Ikshanam Yad Vandanam Yad Travanam Yad Arhanam Lokasha Sajjo Vidunoti I got one more word, but that's okay. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Lokasha Sajjo Vidunoti Kamasam Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha Yat Kirtanam Yat Smaranam Yat Ikshanam Yad Vandanam Yat Travanam Yad Arhanam Lokasha Sajjo Vidunoti Kamasam Tasmai Subhadra Sravesa Namo Namaha. This is actually a very famous book. verse, and it's actually really easy to learn. And it's a really important verse, you know, for his preaching. So, anyone else would like to chant?
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
yat vandanam, yat chavanam, yat ahanam,
Yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
lokasya sadyo vidinoti kamasam,
lokasya vidinoti kamasam,
tasmai subhadra shabase namo namaha,
Tasmai Subhadra Sarvase Namo Namaha.
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
lokasya sadyo vidunoti kamasam,
lokasya vidunoti kamasam,
tasmai subhadra shabase namo namaha,
tasmai subhadra shabase namo namaha.
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam, yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam, lokasya sabyo vinoti kamasam, tasmai subhadra sarvase namo namaha.
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat armanam,
yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
lokasya sadya vidunoti kamasam,
lokasya sabyo vinoti kamasam,
tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha,
tasmai subhadra sarvase namo namaha.
yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yat dikshanam,
yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
yat vandanam, yat shravanam, yat ahanam,
lokasya sadyo vidunoti kamasam,
lokasya sabyo vinoti kamasam,
tasmai subhadra shabase namo namaha,
tasmai subhadra sarvase namo namaha.
Okay, word for word is Yat,
Yat,
whose,
whose,
Kirtanam,
kirtanam,
glorification,
glorification,
Yat,
Yat,
whose,
whose,
Smaranam,
smaranam,
remembrance,
remembrance,
Yat,
Yat,
whose,
whose,
Ikshanam,
ikshanam,
audience,
audience,
like darshan, Yat,
yat,
whose,
whose,
Vandanam,
vandanam,
prayers,
prayer,
Yat,
Yat,
whose,
whose,
Shravanam,
shravanam,
hearing about,
hearing about,
guess what the next word is? Yat,
yeah,
and it's what?
who,
Whose. Okay. Arhanam,
arhanam,
worshiping.
worshiping,
Lokasya, of
lokasya,
all people.
of all people,
Saja,
saja,
forthwith.
forthwith,
Vidunoti,
vidunoti,
specifically cleanses.
specifically cleanses,
Kalmasam,
kamasam,
effects of sins.
effects of sin,
Tasmai,
tasmai,
unto him.
unto him,
Subhadra,
subhadra,
all auspicious.
all auspicious,
Travase,
Travase,
one is heard.
one is heard,
Namaha,
namaha,
my due obeisances.
my due obeisances,
Namaha,
namaha,
again and again.
again and again.
So I'll read the translation and we'll repeat it. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Shri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins by the performer. Please repeat. Let me offer my respectful obeisances
Let me offer my respectful obeisances
unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna,
unto the all-auspicious
Lord Shri Krishna,
about whom glorification,
about whom glorification,
remembrances,
remembrances,
audience,
audience,
prayers,
prayer,
hearing and worship
hearing and worship
can at once
can at once
cleanse the effects
cleanse the effects
of all sins
of all sins
of the performer.
of the performer.
I mean, it's pretty incredible. All you have to do is just hear it. You just hear Krishna's name, hear the pastimes, say his name once, and you're on your way, being completely cleansed of sins. And so I'll read the purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
The sublime form of religious performances to free oneself from all reactions of sins is suggested herein by the greatest authority. Sri Sukadeva Goswami, let me say that again. It's suggested herein by the greatest authority, Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Kirtanam, or glorifying the Lord, can be performed in many ways, such as remembering, visiting the temples to see the deity, offering prayers in front of the Lord, and hearing recitations of glorification of the Lord, as they are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam or in the Bhagavad Gita. Kirtanam can be performed both by singing the glories of the Lord in accompaniment with melodious music and by recitation of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. The devotees need not be disappointed in the physical absence of the Lord, though they may think of not being associated with Him. The devotional process of chanting, hearing, remembering, etc., either all or some of them, or even one of them, can give us the desired result of associating with the Lord by discharging the transcendental loving service of the Lord in the above manner. Even the very sound of the holy name of Lord Krishna or Rama can at once surcharge the atmosphere spiritually. We must know definitely that the Lord is present wherever such pure transcendental service is performed, and thus the performer of offenseless kirtanam has positive association with the Lord. Similarly, remembrance and prayers also give us the desired result if they are properly done under expert guidance. One should not concoct forms of devotional service. One may worship the form of the Lord in a temple, or one may impersonally offer the Lord devotional prayers in a mosque or in a church. One is sure to get free from the reactions of sins, provided one is very careful about not committing sins willingly in expectation of getting free from the reactions of sins by worshiping in the temple or by offering prayers in the church. This mentality of committing sins willfully on the strength of devotional service is called Namno Bala Yasahi Papa Buddhi, and it is the greatest offense in the discharge of devotional service. Hearing, therefore, is essential in order to keep oneself strictly on guard against such pitfalls of sins. And in order to give special stress to the hearing process, the Goswami invokes all auspicious fortune in this matter. So the verse again is, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, upon whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. So this is very interesting in the sense that Krishna, we understand Krishna is absolute. So the sound of Krishna is Krishna. Like we give the classic example, if you chant water, 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 it won't quench your thirst because there's no water in water. It's just a sound. and the substance, the element, the named, is different from the water, which is in the cup. But Krishna's in his name. And the more we purely chant his name in good association, or hear his name, and attentively, the more we benefit, the more we cleanse ourselves from lifetimes of misdirected lives, and we feel and taste the nectar for which we're all hankering for. We're all dissatisfied. Nobody's satisfied in this material world. Everybody's looking for something and can't find it. And that's because it's right there inside of our hearts. It's our dearmost friend. And so this process has come to us by the most munificent incarnation, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He appeared 500 years ago. And this is the most important incarnation of all the incarnations of Krishna. If you only know about one incarnation, this is the one to know. And the fact that we're getting the association with this particular form of Lord Chaitanya, which is unique in all the other Kali Yugas, is it's beyond any estimation of how rare this is. We are so incredibly fortunate. We should never have any feeling that, I wasn't there when Prabhu was on the planet, or I wasn't there, 500 years ago when Lord Chaitanya was there. There's nothing, because the separation, the Vani, is the same as the actual. As a matter of fact, Prabhupada said Vani is better than Vapu, because sometimes you become complacent about seeing the person. You don't. It's hard to believe sometimes, but it's actually true. You may fall asleep actually at the lotus feet of your spiritual master. So the Vani is the most important, and it's the mood of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is always looking for Krishna. He's not saying, I see Krishna. He's always thinking, he's over there, over on the other side of those hills. If this is the Jamuna, it's the ocean. If these sand dunes are the Govardhan Hill. He's looking everywhere for Krishna, trying to find it. This is the mood of the Vaishnava. We don't feel that we have Krishna, we've captured him. We're searching after him. But we have him in the sound vibration. That sound vibration, that mantra, no matter what is the situation of the Lord Chaitanya's movement, whether you're born or involved with it at a time when it's really, expanding quickly, and there's a lot of people, a lot of devotees, a lot of really dynamic programs, that, or whether you're doing it in a solitary place or in a difficult country, in a difficult circumstances where it's oppressive, the sound vibration of the holy name, you get the same benefit. And sometimes when you're in a distressful condition, it's actually even better. That's why Prabhupada had that book Queen Kunti printed, that this mood of distress brings about more sincerity in prayer. When you're praying, when you're in a comfortable condition, it's hard to really, if you're a neophyte like myself, then it's hard to really chant with full vigor. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in this verse, we're talking about the purification of sins. And first of all, let's just start with Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life. The beginning of his life was a very difficult time. There was a lot of sickness, his father dies, his grandfather, and two brothers die when he's very young, and him and his mother in a very impoverished condition. He becomes ill, and he gets sent away from her to school, but he keeps moving forward, progressing constantly, and he's getting the opportunity to be educated with the English, and he takes full advantage of this. And so he actually starts to read all of the different Western philosophers and becomes studying the teachings of Jesus Christ, Muhammad, and then gradually it brings him to the Bhagavatam, and then ultimately to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And at the time, initially, when he was in his late 20s, he couldn't find a copy of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Finally, he was able to get a copy of the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, somewhere around the time it was like 30 or 31, I think. And he takes full advantage of this. He just reads it over and over again. It sets up little opportunities for people to sit down together and study these scriptures and listen to the pastimes of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavatam. And there's a very interesting, he learns how to preach in a way that's very conducive to the English and to other religious people of other doctrines. There's a very interesting article that he wrote about the teachings of Jesus Christ. And it's really quite... And because what we're talking about is, people think, in this particular verse in purport, it's talking about that we become cleansed of sins by chanting the holy name. But the Christians think, if I just accept Jesus Christ in my life, that he died on the cross for me, and depending on which sect of Christianity we're talking about, all you have to do is just accept that. If I accept Jesus Christ died for my sins, then I can also I'll become sinless. But there's no process for actually developing a higher taste and actually practicing a sinless way of life. And that's why in this particular verse we're talking about by chanting the holy names, by hearing the holy names, by going to and taking darshan of the Lord and praying to the Lord, by hearing the pastimes of the Lord in association with other devotees. This is how you develop, you're associating with Krishna in his name, in his pastimes, in his deity form, learning how to talk to the deity, learning how to talk to Krishna. And in this way, it has no attraction for sin. I mean, Prabhupada used to use the example of, like in Catholicism, you go to confession and you atone for your sins. And then the priest gives you a penance, you say some prayers, and then you go out and hopefully you don't sin again. But it's he compares it to the elephant who goes into the river to cleanse itself, comes out of the river, and then throws dirt on its back. So, I don't know where this one particular, it's a really a bit of this one article that he wrote early on about Jesus Christ. Where the heck is it? I don't really know what this is. Bear with me. Are you with me so far? Okay. It's somewhere in here. Oh, I think it's here. Yes. So this is after this one poem that he wrote, forget the past that sleeps, never the future dream at all, with active times without with thee, progress ye shall call. And it starts off with, alas for those who spend their days in festive mirth and joy, the dazzling deadly liquid forms their heart for air employ. It's a really beautiful poem. Around this time, he writes an article about Jesus Christ. And let me see where the best place is to start. So, right here he says, in this short essay, the Thakur analyzes the great commandments of Jesus and compares the precepts of Vaishnavism to it, revealing the further evolution of Christ's teachings promulgated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Quote, it was Christ, Jesus, who first said, quote, love God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and love man as thy brother. This, that's the end of the quote. quote, "This is an absolute truth indeed." But, and this is part of his essay, this is an absolute truth indeed, but different men put different interpretations on this noble expression. The expressions of all great men are nice, but somewhat mysterious. When understood, they bring forth the nearest to the heart. Otherwise, they remain mere letters that kill. The reason of the mystery is that men, advanced in their inward approach to the deity, are in the habit of receiving revelations which are but mysteries to those behind them. The stages of process are very much the same as the circles of spiritualism, which, though not true themselves, explain a great deal about the gradual development of the soul. We have understood some spiritualists to maintain that matter, when sublimated, converts into itself to spirit. This theory is indeed against any inward conviction. Matter is matter, and spirit is spirit. One of them cannot form the other. Spirit is certainly of a superior existence, though we cannot fully understand it in our present state of material imprisonment. What relation spirit does exactly bear to matter, space, and time. Metaphysics apart, we decide that the human soul rises higher and higher and can understand things of which we have no idea at present. Subject to this important rule, Christ Jesus of Nazareth received and uttered the words quoted above. The readers who are a little above the scale of ordinary men, these expressions of Jesus teach that men should love God with all his heart, meaning the affections of the heart, perceivable in all children as opposed to hate. With all his mind, meaning the intellect, which knows as opposed to ignorance of good things. With all his soul, meaning that principle of the human constitution, which worships the Almighty and feels its own immortality. And with all of his strength, meaning all active work. So it goes on like this, and he actually breaks down these four or five, all thy mind, all their body, all thy heart, and compares them to the gradual evolution from Shantarasa, Dasharasa, Sakyarasa, and Vatsalyarasa. And the Christians at the time loved this. So he was very well respected. This particular Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when you study his life, the things that he was able to do, and how he was able to glorify Lord Chaitanya's preaching and the Bhagavatam are remarkable. There's one story where there's he goes to this one town. I think he was stationed. He was being moved around a lot, and the English, they all were very wanting. They were all eager to have him in their district because they see that he was extremely just and fair. His morality, his ethics were of the highest caliber. And he came from a very difficult background. Gradually, by his own work, he set this perfect example of coming from nothing and gradually evolving to the highest pinnacle of, pure bhakti. I mean, this is all part of the evolution, or this was part of his pastimes. I'm sure he was an eternally liberated soul, but as an acharya, he shows this perfect example. And as an acharya, everybody's attracted to him. Everything about him is attractive. So at one point, he sees this town. In this town, everybody's worshiping a ghost that's living in this one tree. And the reason they're worshiping this ghost is because the ghost will influence the judge to rule in a way favorable to the person who worships the ghost. And when he hears of this, he arranges that he gets a very erudite and pure Brahmin, or scholar, not scholar, but a Brahmin, to recite the Bhagavatam underneath this tree. And he does so. It takes 1 month. He recites the whole Bhagavatam. But at the end of the month, after the recitation of the Bhagavatam, the tree is completely just crushed. It just it falls, it cracks in half, and the ghost is released from the tree. And then when people saw this, they knew that it was the Bhagavatam that had done this, and they became enthralled with the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He would set up little classes and little associations. When he was in Jagannath Puri, he was setting up association in the same garden where Ramananda Roy would go to hear bhajans and the pastimes of the Lord. And at one point, all the Vaishnavas were going, except for one, and his name was Raghunath Das Babaji. He disapproved of Bhaktivinoda because he wasn't wearing the Kunti, the Tulsi Mala, and he wasn't wearing the 12 symbols of Tilak. And so he refused to go, and he criticized Bhaktivinoda. He became very ill. And one night in a dream, Lord Jagannath came to Raghunath Das Babaji and told him, "You will die from this disease. The only cure is that you go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and beg for his forgiveness. He's a very great devotee of mine." So he gets up and he goes to see Bhaktivinoda Thakur, explains to him how he became envious of him. He begs for forgiveness. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur accepts his apologies, and he gives him some special medicines to help him, and he's cured of his disease. There's of course we know the famous story of the yogi. And I was gonna say something. Oh, the king of Jagannath Puri. When he first arrived at Jagannath Puri, there's something like 52 to 56 offerings every day to the Lord Jagannath. When Bhaktivinoda arrived there, the king of Orissa, or that area, was he was embezzling something like, he had already embezzled about 80,000 rupees. So Bhaktivinoda came to know of this. It was proven, and his punishment, the king's punishment, was that he had to now finance all the 52 or 56 offerings every day, which slowly depleted his treasury. And the king was furious. He wanted him dead. But he knew he couldn't kill him in a normal way. He had to do it in a mystical way. So he hires something like 30 or 50 Brahmins. I think it's 50 Brahmins. And they perform yajnas in the inner chambers of his palace, so no one knows, for 30 days, for 1 month. On the last day, the last offering of ghee onto the fire was when Bhaktivinoda should have died, but instead the king had one son who he was very attached to, and at that moment the king's son died. So he was a very powerful personality, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but he was a very kind person. There's a story that Lalit Prasad tells, one of his youngest son, Bhaktisiddhanta's younger brother, who was still alive during the time of Prabhupada's early preaching in Mayapur. Jayapataka Maharaj tells a story of him going with Prabhupada to talk to Lalit Prasad about some things. And so he tells a story about, I think his name was Sir Howard Duke. And unbeknownst to Bhaktivinoda, he was a superior in a sense in the British government, but he was extremely envious of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was obsessed with his envy of him. He couldn't stand that an Indian was so intelligent and so competent. And they were, because the British at that time were doing everything possible to destroy the Indians' faith in their own culture. They were trying to, show. They were training them up and to become proper English gentlemen, train them up in Christianity so that they could preach Christianity, mocking the teachings of Sukadeva Goswami and Vyasadeva in the Bhagavatam, mocking all of these things. And there was a lot to mock at that time because the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were not very reputable. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur turned those things around. So this Howard Duke, he said in his last days, he told Lali Prasad this, in his last days he confessed that he was so envious. He would even go over to Bhaktivinoda's house. He would read all of his judgments, and he couldn't believe how well it was written. And he was really worried that this is too good, that other Indians will become just as competent, and we'll lose control of the population. So, and then he would go over to his house and he'd see his work ethic, how he never wasted any time. If he wasn't working on the work for a judgment that he was working, a case, then he was writing either songs, books. He wrote, I think, over 100 songs or 100 books, many songs, and all imbued with pure devotion and really beautiful poetry. Everyone respected his writings. And so, anyway, this Howard Duke confessed to Lali Prasad that I hated your father. I was so envious of your father. And I feel like I just wasted the opportunity to have the proper association with him. My whole life I was obsessed with trying to figure out a way to destroy him. But he was undaunted by all these things, and we have all of his writings and all of his songs, and we have this movement, which he is the father of. Srila Prabhupada has stated that he is the father of this movement. He's the one who saved Lord Chaitanya's movement from, the degradation that had come about, during the natural course of time. So we should never become disheartened that things aren't going the same way. We see the pictures of Prabhupada and his disciples in the 70s, and even after that, and how things were going. And in some parts of the world, things aren't going very well. But we should never feel like we've missed something. The process is always pure. It's always available to anyone who's sincere and desirous of taking full advantage of this human form of life, to understand the difference between human life and animal life, and use this human form of life for the real purpose that it's not just about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's about becoming reconnected with our eternal, individual, unique relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and with everyone else. To develop the real qualities of the soul, which will lead to eternal bliss, eternal knowledge, instead of this miserable life of with dull brains, worn out after lifetime of being beaten down by the three modes of material nature. And all of these negative qualities that come with it, fighting for the survival of the fittest. But there's nobody fit because everybody dies. Nobody wins. Everybody loses. As long as we stay in this consciousness, we must free ourselves from this materialistic consciousness that we are haunted by and are surrounded by, and that Maya is trying to drag us into. Don't allow Maya to win Don't in your own, because Maya will not defeat Lord Chaitanya's movement, but she may defeat some individuals. Don't be a casualty. You'll get another chance, but don't waste time, because this is the real thing. This is, even though, don't judge things necessarily always by what's happening right now. People say, well, what can the CMT do here at this place right now? Well, it's also the burdens on each individual. What do? I have to fly my own journey back to Godhead. I have to do what I have. No one can make me Krishna conscious. No one can make me enthusiastic except for me. And this process can do that. Of course, we get enthused by our spiritual master and by Srila Prabhupada, the founder of Charya. We get enthused by seeing the deities. We get enthused by chanting and reading the books. But we have to they're here. We have to take advantage of them. The deities are here. We have to take advantage of their darshan. And we have to pray with all humility that I can be a success and a good example of this process, so that others will also follow and be enthused as well. Anyway, I'm talking too long. There's more about Bhaktivinoda, a lot of things we've already, everyone knows. I can read his schedule. Is there any questions right now, comments? Yes?
I think I was telling you the other day that one thing I've noticed about not just Prabhupada disciples, but other devotees who have firm faith in their guru, that they're not morose. I remember when my mother's husband died, and she had to go around to everybody and say, I lost my husband. She's a checkout lady, you know what I mean?
You mean your father or your stepfather?
My mother going around, going shopping. I was going out just after he passed away, and she just had to let somebody know that she lost, husband, whatever. But it does seem that some of the, I don't know all the Prabhupada disciples, but they're not wallowing, They're very strong in their faith.
Thank you. That's a compliment.
What's to come?
I'm going to read the Bhaktivinoda Thakur schedule. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. rest. 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. write. 4 a.m. to 4:30 rest. 4:30 to 7 a.m. chant japa. 7 a.m. to 7:30 correspondence. 7:30 to 9:30 study shastras. 9:30 to 10 a.m. bath, prasadam, a liter of milk, fruit, and 2 chapatis. 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. court duties. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. refresh at home. 2 p.m. to 5 court duties. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. translate Sanskrit shastras to Bengali. 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. bath, prasadam, a half liter of milk, rice, and 2 chapatis. Oh, and the first time was a half liter as well. He didn't take the whole liter. So altogether it was 1 liter a day, half a liter. What does that equate to in our courts and
I think it's something like a quart.
Yeah. Well, as far as that observation, Colleen, is I think has to do with that because we have some information that this life is not. We know the story. We know that we're not these bodies. We know that there's more to life than just what is happening, in the normal course of affairs. we understand that death isn't the end of everything. So we are very fortunate to have Srila Prabhupada being around at the time that Srila Prabhupada came with Lord Chaitanya's movement. I don't know why I personally got this opportunity. I mean, if I think about how rare this opportunity is and what happened prior to just in this country 200 years prior, and some of the types of people that were here in America, they didn't get this opportunity. What to speak of, so many thousands of years of civilization.
Yeah, but I also mean the other, gurus.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, no, the whole movement, yeah. Anything else? Yes.
A question and a comment.
Okay.
The question is, do you know what the spiritualists were? Were they a particular group? Because the word just sounds generalized. Was that the name of a particular group or a particular belief? The spiritualists?
No, he's talking about people who are involved
and mentioned what you wrote.
What?
He opposed the spiritualists in the first thing you read about him. Not wrote, but read.
Well, I don't remember exactly what you're referring to. But there was a point, and that fellow that was a yogi who claimed to be Mahavishnu, and he was having Rasa Leela, and he had mystic powers, fire coming out of his hair. He would sit in front of a fire and lean and go into the fire, and then fire would shoot out of his hair, and he would had some other mystic potencies. And they were part of a Gaudiya Vaishnava sect that used intoxicants, and he was getting men to bring him ladies, even their own wives and daughters, to engage in the Ras Leela. And these were that was a group of spiritualists that he had to correct.
So my comment was that I understood that, I learned recently, I can't remember where, but that at first he established the legitimacy of Vaishnavism among accepted religions. So he made it, we're equal, we're as good as, and he established that first. Because he was brought up, in a family that was disgusted with it. Well, you might have even said, I don't know who said it.
The mother was basically an atheist.
And then that family, they were disgusted with the Vaishnavas because of the behavior.
Not everyone. There were some that weren't. And they were calling him the Prahlad in the family of the Asuras.
So first he had to explore all the religions because he wasn't brought up understanding Vaishnavism. He had to explore all the religions and establish that Vaishnavism is also an equally valid religion. He had to establish that. And then he established that it was superior. And so if you take the whole work of his life, you'll get the right idea. But if you read only the first part, because we also are coming from the Christian background, or whatever, Jewish, whatever, and trying to sort out deep inside each of us in our own way, trying to sort out these things between religions. Therefore, if we read that, sometimes it can give us encouragement, but sometimes it can give us a wrong idea. So ultimately we should take the whole teaching and basically take Prabhupada's teaching because that's the culmination. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, you can look back on his whole life and then see, but at any point, it's, and I don't think that necessarily it seems as if this was arranged in a way that we can take heart in it, and it appears that he's, we're having a similar kind of experience, but we're not living the same kind of life as he is. I mean, we haven't reached, in such a short period of time, reached the same levels of success that he did.
Oh no, but we're learning from him.
Yeah, we're learning from him.
Yeah.
So, and he came along exactly at the right time to save it. And
Sometimes when I knew it was a little confusing to me when I saw things he wrote, that seemed to mix it up from understanding Prabhupada saying that this is the superior way, and he seemed to be saying, well, maybe Christians are okay too, and because there's some differences between Christians.
Well, actually, there's a purport, and we're about to read in 2 days. 2 days from now, there's a purport where Prabhupada is glorifying Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but not the Christian theology, which is inadequate compared to what we have.
Yeah, well, in Bhaktivinoda, he broke it down. I mean, I stopped because I sensed that people weren't following what I was reading. But he breaks it down. Those that love God with all their heart, mind, and soul, body, mind, and soul. He breaks it down in a very systematic way and shows that is actually not just those words. Those words indicate something much deeper and higher. That it's actually stages of becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness and actually developing a Shanta Rasa, Dasa Rasa, a Sakya Rasa, and he goes on in depth about it. So he had a way of presenting the teachings of Jesus to show that Christ himself was a Vaishnava, preaching in a desert to very common people, let's say. It was according to time, place, and circumstance. Just like that one Vaishnava who thought that he wasn't a qualified Vaishnava because he didn't have tilak, and in that there's the statement that this goes to show that you can't judge a book by its cover, so to speak. You can't judge a Vaishnava by his dress, but by his content. And what was he doing? He was trying to get the Vaishnavas together at a time that they were not associating or not performing, real pure spiritual recitations of the Bhagavatam. And he wanted this to be done publicly. And he was doing this at great risk. But because he was such a responsible... and another thing is that he had a choice in his youth to make money by doing business. And he looked at that lifestyle, and you can see that he was a Brahmin, because he thought, to do business you have to engage in lying, and sometimes some cheating, and this is not very moral. And it's better to be a teacher, and make less money, because so in other words, he wasn't interested in the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance. He was interested in the mode of goodness, and gradually pure goodness. He wanted to be a teacher, not a businessman. Was that? Did you have anything
there's
else?
so many things that can be said about this,
Yeah.
but he had phases, and I wish I could remember where I read it. I didn't come up with this. I read it or heard it. That he had phases. That first he had to establish Vaishnavism as respectable among the world religions, and then he started showing its superiority.
Yeah.
Because it does go beyond.
Right.
And so if you only read the first parts, that may be encouraging, but it also can be confusing.
But the thing is,
only about half an hour, so it's kind of difficult.
yeah. But anyway, the thing is that what is, if you start to talk in terms of this is superior and that's less, then that's insulting to other people. So
I don't care, because it's
no.
true.
Let me finish then. Let me make my point.
Yeah.
So just like you have to teach ABC,
Yeah.
then you teach grammar, or you teach basic math. Then you can go to algebra, geometry, like that. So he was trying to present that Jesus Christ was teaching to very common men and gradually introducing. And so he was saying that there is no contradiction here, that Jesus Christ was also a Vaishnava. And Vaishnavas, he was preaching in a compassionate way. And he compared him to Haridas Thakur, because he was willing to sacrifice his own life to preach.
Unity and diversity.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of other, I can't think of them all right now. Just my mind is a little tired. But there were so many interesting pastimes of this, and so many, his writings are so vast. When you start to, like right here, this is just a few, right? I just saw it laying over there. This is Manasa Deha Geha, that's one song. And then we have Oi Vaishnava Thakur, Sudha Bhakata, Vibhavari Sesha, Shavarana Sri Gora Mahima, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. These are all, that one is a Nartan. But most of the others that I mentioned were all Bhaktivinoda Thakur songs. He was very prolific. He also introduced new styles of poetry in Bengal and new styles of Vaishnava prayers. His Saranagati is considered a new style of prayer amongst the Vaishnavas. There's a very interesting lecture by Mahanidhi Swami where he describes that. Mahanidhi is a Prabhupada disciple who spent the last 30-something years in Vrindavan. So I apologize for any shortcomings. But I hope that there was something to be gained here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Talavana Dham ki
Jai.